The skull. To most people, it is a symbol of death, of endings, of fear. But within the Aghori path, the human skull is not a symbol of terror. It is a doorway to the eternal. It is not simply bone. It is a mirror of the cosmos itself. When outsiders look at an Aghori with a skull, they see darkness. But when an Aghori looks at the same skull, he sees the dance of Shiva, the secret of life, and the truth that few in this world dare to confront. The skull, known as Kapala, is not carried for shock value, nor for superstition. It is used as a vessel of awakening. The world teaches us to honor life and deny death. But the Aghori tradition reverses this conditioning, teaching us to honor death so that we may finally understand life. The skull is the reminder that everything you cling to, your name, your possessions, your body, will dissolve. And yet, what remains is something indestructible, something eternal. The skull strips away the illusion of permanence, forcing you to see reality without the mask of ego. There is a reason why Shiva himself, the Adiyogi, is often depicted with skulls adorning him. He is called Kapala, the bearer of skulls, because he holds the wisdom that death is not destruction. It is transformation. In Sanatan Dharma, the skull is not the end of the story, but the beginning of liberation. The Aghori, who walk the most extreme path, embody this truth by meditating upon the skull. It is not merely an object, but a teacher. Few know this, but the Aghoris believe that the human skull is the perfect vessel for consciousness. Why? Because it once held the mind, the ego, the very seat of identity. And when emptied of life, it becomes the hollow reminder that all thoughts, all pride, all memories eventually vanish. The skull, in its emptiness, becomes the purest symbol of shunyata, the void. To drink water or food from a skull is not an act of barbarism. It is an act of renunciation, a declaration that one has accepted the void as the ultimate truth. There is also a subtle esoteric teaching hidden in the structure of the skull itself. The human skull contains openings: the eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth. Each of these once connected a being to the outer world. But for the Aghori, the skull represents the closing of those outward gates. The senses that once bound us to illusion are silenced. What remains is the inner vision, the third eye, the seat of pure awareness. In this sense, the skull is a symbol of withdrawal from Maya and a return to the source. There is an ancient story in the Kapalika tradition, the forebears of the Aghoris, about why Shiva carries a skull. It is said that once Brahma, in his arrogance, mocked Shiva. In anger, Shiva plucked off one of Brahma's heads, but that head, the skull, clung to him as Kapala, demanding that Shiva atone for the act. For years, Shiva wandered as a beggar with that skull in his hand until he reached Kashi, where the skull finally dropped. This is why Kashi is called Avimukta Kshetra, the place never abandoned by Shiva. The symbolism is profound. Even Shiva, the great destroyer, embraced humility through the skull. He bore it until he was freed of the karmic residue. For the Aghori, carrying the skull is the reenactment of this divine journey. The acceptance of karma, the renunciation of arrogance, and the surrender to truth. In ritual, the skull is used not just as a vessel, but as a focus for meditation. The Aghori gazes into the hollow eye sockets and confronts his own mortality. He asks, "Who am I beyond this bone? What remains when this shell is gone?" This confrontation is not meant to terrify, but to liberate. While the world runs from death, the Aghori runs toward it. By doing so, he dissolves fear, attachment, and illusion. And when fear is gone, freedom arrives. Another layer of the skull's symbolism lies in its connection to time. Our skulls outlast our flesh. Long after the body has decayed, the skull remains. This endurance is a reminder of the impermanence of form and the endurance of essence. Just as the skull survives the body, consciousness survives death. The Aghori uses the skull to meditate on this continuity, to anchor himself in the truth that he is not merely body or thought, but something beyond, untouched by decay. Most people will never know that the skull is also seen as a miniature temple. In some Aghori practices, the skull represents the Garbhagriha, the sanctum of a temple, where the divine resides. Just as a temple houses a deity, the skull once housed a soul. By consecrating the skull, the Aghori honors the life that once was and acknowledges the eternal presence that still vibrates within the bone. This is why disrespect never enters the practice. To hold the skull is to hold a fragment of the divine. To outsiders, it may appear grotesque, but remember, in Sanatan Dharma, nothing is excluded from the sacred. The body is sacred, the ash is sacred, the skull is sacred. Where the world sees filth, the Aghori sees Shiva. This radical inclusiveness is the essence of their path, to see the divine in what others reject. The skull, then, is the perfect symbol of their vision. It is the ultimate reminder that God is not just in temples, but also in cremation grounds. Not only in life, but also in death. There is also a psychological dimension to this practice. The human mind is full of fear. Fear of loss, fear of aging, fear of death. These fears control us, shaping our decisions, chaining our freedom. By meditating upon the skull, the Aghori dismantles these fears. He says to himself, "This is what I am afraid of. This is what I will become. Let me embrace it now." And in that embrace, fear loses its grip. What remains is a kind of fearlessness that ordinary people cannot imagine. The skull also holds lessons in humility. No matter how beautiful, powerful, or wealthy a person once was, their skull looks the same as anyone else's. In the end, kings and beggars alike are reduced to bone. By keeping the skull close, the Aghori never forgets this equality. Pride dissolves in the face of this truth. This is why the skull is the great equalizer, reminding us that all distinctions are illusions before death. Yet there is another secret, known only to those who walk the deeper path. The skull is not just about death, it is about rebirth. When the Aghori drinks from the skull, he symbolically drinks from the vessel of mortality. By consuming through it, he internalizes the truth that life and death are not separate. They are one continuous cycle. In this way, the skull becomes not a symbol of despair, but of eternal continuity. And so, when you see an Aghori with a skull in his hand, know that you are not seeing a madman or a rebel against society. You are seeing a seeker holding the key to one of the greatest truths of Sanatan Dharma. You are seeing someone who has chosen to confront what the world denies, to embrace what the world fears, and to honor the divine in the most unlikely form. The skull, in the Aghori path, is not about death. It is about transcendence. If this knowledge has opened a new perspective for you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, The Aghori Code. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What does the skull mean to you, now that you know its hidden wisdom? By engaging with each other, we can keep these ancient insights alive, and together, we can walk a little closer to truth.